There's trouble at Anaheim City Hall, and this could affect Disneyland. Meanwhile, Disney has notified their cast that some new, much more restrictive attendance policies are on the way, while Universal Studios looks like they're still coming for Disney in their place in the theme park world. We'll talk about all this next on Fresh Baked. Hi guys, David here with Fresh Baked. I want to talk to you about what's new and newsworthy with the Disney company. And I'm wondering if you guys remember just how bleak things were during the shutdown. If you drove around the city of Anaheim at this time, you could see that it was a literal ghost town. Things were bad, and it stayed bad for a long time. Frustratingly so at times, and that's when I became familiar with a man named Harry Sidhu. He's the mayor of Anaheim. Mostly because of this. He made an impassioned speech on the rooftop of a hotel on Harbor Boulevard across the street from Disneyland, basically begging the governor to end the lockdown.
It's a disaster right here.
Today, that same Harry Sidhu is under investigation by the federal government for corruption. Sidhu was elected mayor of Anaheim in 2018, an election that many thought was favorable to Disney, but the investigation on him may be a roadblock now for Disney. At the very minimum, you got to figure it's going to at least delay whatever it is that they're doing with Disneyland Forward, as a large part of that project, of that initiative, is about getting the city of Anaheim to change how it zones certain properties that Disney owns. But if there's a change in leadership at City Hall, then it could also change the relationship between Disney and the city. And most likely, not in a positive direction. Quick primer on the allegations. You may or may not be aware that the city of Anaheim recently entered into an agreement with the California Angels, I'm going to call them the California Angels, with the California Angels to sell Anaheim Stadium to the Angels for $320 million. Which, by the way, is a story in and of itself, because most people agree that is a ridiculously low price for that property. Not because just the stadium alone is probably worth more than that, plus all the land that it sits on. That's a huge parking lot. It's worth way more than $320 million. The sale of Anaheim Stadium is basically the center of the corruption probe against the mayor, one that essentially accuses Sidhu of facilitating the sale in favor of the Angels in exchange for campaign contributions that would aid in his re-election. And then there are also some other charges, tax evasion and witness tampering. But the general gist of things here is that the mayor of Anaheim, Harry Sidhu, is dirty. Pay-per-play mayor, with most of his favor going towards big business rather than small business, i.e. his situation with the California Angels. Now, Disney, by the way, is not named in this thing at all. They're not involved in this at all. There have been no dealings with the mayor. Disney's completely clean in all of this, but they are a big business. And that, again, could cause a disruption in their relationship with whatever team takes over the mayor's office at City Hall. By the way, I say that because when I wrote this story originally, I had this done, ready to go 2 days ago. And in that story, I predicted that the mayor would actually resign. He wouldn't survive this. There's no way he could survive this probe. And in fact, he didn't survive this. He quit yesterday. But really, that's not the story. Whether or not Harry Sidhu survives this, or whether or not he's the mayor, and how well this goes or badly this goes for him, this corruption probe. The real story, as far as we're concerned, is how does this affect Disneyland and Disneyland Forward? Historically speaking, whenever something like this happens, the next administration is almost always the opposite politically of the previous administration. And where Sidhu's administration could have been described as friendly to big business, it is my expectation that the next administration will not be friendly to big business. They're going to be more favorable to small business. It's a tale as old as time. The scale is balanced out. Just look at presidential elections. Anytime you're sick of whatever one president is doing, it's always, if you're tired of what the Democrat did, then the next president-elect is going to be Republican, vice versa. It happens all the time throughout history. So logic dictates that the next mayor and his or her administration, because they do bring in, the mayor doesn't say yes or no to every single thing. They don't make all the decisions. You got city council, etc. But they do bring in their own cabinet. They do bring in their own advisors. They do put their stamp on everything that happens. I don't think that Disneyland Forward is done as far as whatever it is that they're trying to negotiate with the city. I don't think it's done right now. If it had been, we probably would have heard something. There would have been some kind of news. So whatever position that they're at right now is probably on hold until they can figure out what they're going to do. That next administration is probably going to be more favorable to small business and less favorable to big business. That's just my assumption. Keep in mind, again, I'll reiterate, as we've said in many other videos, Disneyland Forward is not a project that has been written. It is not a done deal. It is not a thing that they're going to do. It's just a vision of what they could do if they were given the proper ability by the city of Anaheim. But they can't do any of it. They can't do any of what they want to do at the Simba parking lot, at the downtown Disney parking lot, or in the Toy Story parking lot. They can't do anything in those places until the city says, yes, you can. And right now they can't because those lots are not zoned for the kind of things that Disney wants to build in those lots. A parcel can be either, commercial, residential, or industrial, sometimes mixed use. And it gets more nuanced than this, especially when it comes to parking lots and hotels. But the large view of things is that Disney needs Anaheim to change how the sites like Toy Story are zoned before they can build anything there. It's often thrown around. It's funny. The Toy Story lot is often thrown around as a future site for a third gate. Why don't you build a third gate at Toy Story? You can't. You can't. And I do think that's going to get backburnered right now. Probably at least until November. They're not even going to talk about it until November. And then it may be a few months after that. First, the city has to deal with the investigation. Then they've got to hire a new mayor, and then that mayor's got to bring in their own cabinet and their own administration. Then Disney has to rebuild relationships with that new administration. And again, with a group that may or may not be as friendly to big business as the former mayor's office was. And that's actually a good time to take a look again at Reedy Creek. When we talk about Reedy Creek, if you want to understand why Reedy Creek is so important to the Disney company, this is exactly what we're talking about. At Reedy Creek, they don't have to worry about any of this because they are the government. At Reedy Creek, Disney is the government. They don't have to deal with any of that, bureaucratic malarkey that they do here in Anaheim. And it's even worse now because you've got a mayor that's corrupt and who's under investigation. So that's just going to make everything even worse. Disney very much, very much wants to reconcile this Reedy Creek situation so they can go back to doing business the way Disney wants to do business. By the way, in related news, this probably ends the sale of Angel Stadium from the city to the California Angels. The Angels are still going to probably want to put that through. Why wouldn't they? $320 million. It's a good price. But I don't think it's going to happen now, which obviously means now we can start talking again about Disney buying that property. That was a thing. I don't know if you recall. There was a time when the Angels were threatening to leave Angel Stadium and move the team to another city. Tustin, I think, was one of the options. And then people were talking about the Angels or the Disney swooping in and buying that property and turning it into a third gate. We can start talking about that again. Yay! But for now, let's talk about Disney's efforts to make it a little bit harder to work at Disneyland. They just got through a pretty nasty contract negotiation where they narrowly averted a strike by cast members. Today, we can report that Disney has notified its union membership that they are making their attendance policy a little more strict, some might say a lot more strict. Cliff notes on the old system, CM's worked on a point system. 1.5 points for being late, 3 points for calling out, 6 points for a no-call, no-show. If the CM got 12 points in a month, they got a verbal. Same for 18 points in 3 months, 27 points in 6 months, or 36 points in a year. These verbal disciplines make it very difficult for a cast member to get a preferred job, a placement in a preferred land or position, or to gain advancement. There's more. Under the old system, if a CM were to call, let's say they got the flu, and they're going to be sick for 2 or 3 days. Normally when you get the flu, you're out for a couple days, not just one. That 3-day stretch is considered one call-out. Also, a CM had the opportunity to trade 2 hours of their PTO for those points, so they could avoid having points put on their record by trading 2 hours of their PTO. All that is changing. The point scale is being tightened. Consecutive sick days are being counted individually as 3 different callouts. If you're out 3 straight days, that's 3 days worth of callouts. And instead of trading 2 hours to avoid a callout points being added to your record, it's hour for hour. So it'll cost you 8 hours of PTO to call out for a full shift, an 8-hour shift, let's say. Now, it goes without saying that Disney's doing this because they are having difficulty keeping the park staffed. Still, it's been an ongoing issue since the parks reopened. Callouts aren't necessarily up in that time versus previous years, but they just simply have fewer cast to depend on than they had in those previous years, because they have not been able to hire as many cast as they were before. They have not been able to keep as many cast as they had before. They have been losing cast left and right, either through the COVID restrictions or from retirement or what have you. It's a known problem. If you've seen, for example, a restaurant close when it shouldn't be, or maybe cast members not showing you where to park at the Toy Story parking lot when normally there would be, that's because they had too many call-outs and they had to close or end that segment of operation. Now, before I go any further on this, know that this is not, I'm not using this as an opportunity to throw daggers at Disney. This is not necessarily an attack on Disney in the strictest sense. Disney is not by any means out of line for asking their cast to show up for work. Nobody has a right to abuse an attendance policy, no matter how strict or not strict it is. Nonetheless, cast are upset. Some are describing this as a continuation of what is overall an anti-worker environment at Disney. Disney's been having a hard time keeping the park fully staffed and operational, but rather than making the environment more beneficial for CMs, thus encouraging them to show up for work and to stay employed at Disney, they seem to be tightening the noose a little bit. And that's making many CMs second guess whether or not they want to keep showing up and providing that magic. I guess what I'm saying here is that, well, I definitely think that cast need to do their part. Take a job, show up for the job, do the job, but Disney also needs to do their part and show their support for the people who literally, literally are the deliverers of the magic that Disney is so proud of and that they take credit for. They go on and on about how, the cast members are at the center of the Disney magic, of the Disneyland magic, and it's true. But they seem to take that for granted. Pay your cast, treat them well, make it an enjoyable place to work, show them respect, and they will show up and they will stay, they will show up for work and they will stay employed. They won't go elsewhere at another job. So yeah, Disney's still going through some things. They're still having issues with cast, issues with their stock price, issues with politicians, and not even talking about Harry Sidhu. There are other things like the Reedy Creek situation, which there are developments on that as well, which I am not going to get into today. So Disney's definitely on the ropes, and I do sense that there's at least one theme park out there in the business that is trying to take advantage of this situation and close the gap between themselves and the company Disneyland, which is considered the benchmark, the pinnacle of theme park entertainment. I recently renewed my annual pass to Universal Studios Hollywood, and I got a survey. You know I love surveys. Now, most of it was standard stuff, but Universal did take a minute to address the Universal versus Disneyland battle. Who does discounts better? Who does special events better? How do you like that Genie Plus? Actually, they're not even really asking how we like it. Do we like Genie Plus? They're asking, does Genie Plus affect your willingness, your desire to renew your annual pass at Disneyland? And I think the answer to this would inform Universal about whether or not they should continue their current system, the Express Pass. How do you like that reservation system? Now we're talking. Universal doesn't have a reservation system. Are they thinking about doing it? Keep in mind, they're not asking this for fun. This is not just idle chit-chat that they're having here. There's a purpose to this. The purpose is they're probably thinking about it. They would ask this question only if they were considering doing this themselves. Which, by the way, should be another clue for those observing this situation that the reservation system isn't so much about inventory management or cast management. It's about putting guests in the park when you want them, what days and what times you want them. Universal is watching, they're observing, and they may have noticed or maybe being told that it's working with respect to Disneyland being able to get, they've turned guests who normally only go on the weekends, and they've turned us into weekday visitors. That's a win. Because I'll tell you what, I went to Universal, a couple months ago on a weekday. Dead as disco. I walked onto every attraction, including some of the biggest ones. But then I went later, a few weeks ago on a Saturday, and I'll tell you what, I was very grateful that I had upgraded my pass to include the Express, the Platinum Pass with the Express. And I was able to use their Fast Pass system because the waits were an hour or more. So I think Universal they want to do something like that. I do think that they're very interested in getting guests into the park more often on a weekday. By the way, same for this one. Is Universal thinking about selling individual lightning lanes? Again, They wouldn't ask this question if they weren't thinking about it. What it's worth, I answered, no, I don't like any of it. Please don't do this. So here's to hoping that Universal doesn't get into the reservation system or lightning lane type business. By the way, final note, Universal is also holding a pass holder takeover day, June 8th from 8 p.m. to midnight. It's a hosted event by Coca-Cola where pass holders will have exclusive access to rides, attractions, and character meets, plus a Coca-Cola party zone with dueling DJs and an outdoor lounge. You do have to make a reservation for this one though, starting at 1:30 p.m. Actually today, I think that already happened. So it might be too late if you're just now hearing about this. Also, it's free. Thank you for watching, everybody. Follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. And if you like our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/freshbaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you very much. Be safe, be kind, and fresh baked.